Hello, everybody. I'm Angie Manning, one of the trustees of Torbay Community Development Trust. Thank you. Hello, I'm Angie Manning, one of the trustees of Torbay Community Development Trust. Just to run through a couple of housekeeping things for you. If you could please put the phones on silent, that would be much appreciated. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if you do hear the alarm, if you could just go out through the double doors, and then we'll meet across the road by the park. Toilets just downstairs by the front doors, and the bar opens at 8. I'm going to hand over to Jo Collins now, our Chair of Trustees.
Kia ora, Angie, kia ora tātou katoa. Hello from New Zealand. I'm sorry that I can't be with you. That's a Māori welcome in the country over here. It's great to be able to be present with this technology. By looking at the screen, I'm not sure you can see me. Oh, there we go. I can just about see myself. So good evening to you all, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be able to be with you from the other side of the world, and I'm sorry I can't be with you in person at this time, but welcoming you to the AGM of Torbay Community Development Trust, an opportunity for all of us to come together and celebrate the great work that's been going on, but also to look forward at the future, which I know currently in the landscape that we have is very tough for all concerned, and it's as important now as it ever was that communities come together and organisations like ourselves are positioned in partnership with others to support as many people as possible. So I welcome you all. Enjoy the evening, having the opportunity to network and collaborate. I will be joining you a bit later. I'm hot-footing it to a different destination, so you may see me with a different background to do the chair's report, but I will hand back over to either I think Tracy or Angie to take you on to the next steps, and I'll see you a bit later.
I'm not in New Zealand, I'm in Paignton, I'm pleased to say. This evening we do have a formal part at about 7:30 where we're going to do our AGM. But we wanted to spend a little bit of time before we got to that sharing with you some of the activities and the highlights of our work. So we put together an agenda which many of you will have received when you were invited to this meeting, which just appeared back then. So we thought, what can we do this year? We can never cover everything that the Community Development Trust does in a year. And this year we're looking at this AGM, we're looking back at 2021-22. And I must apologise to those of you who came to our last AGM, which was only in March, when we were looking at 2020 to 2021. But the pandemic forced us to have rather a delayed AGM, and now we're sort of catching up with ourselves. So this period that we're going to be looking at has a couple of really important aspects to it. And so in a minute, we're going to focus on the end of our Aging Well programme, which was a multi-year programme that many of you are familiar with, and how that actually led to the creation of the Torbay Community Helpline, which is another critical development, not just for us as an organisation, but for the sector as a whole, that took place after just before the first lockdown at the beginning of the pandemic. So we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at that, and there's some time for people to ask questions as well afterwards. And then at 7:30 approximately, we will go into our formal agenda. We don't expect that to take any more than 30 minutes, it may take less. And then the very exciting part of the meeting is that the bar opens and we can network and spend a bit more time talking about whatever we'd like to. I do just need to note a few apologies this evening. Sadly, Councillor Steve Darling is unable to be with us, the leader of the council, due to a bereavement that happened today. And we have two trustees, John Gunson and Nigel Williams, who are unable to be with us as well. So all the other apologies that we have received will be in the minutes, but those 3 individuals specifically asked that we let you know that they had wanted to be here. So without further ado, I think we will move on to the 7 years of Ageing Well Torbay and how it led to the development of the birth of the Torbay Community Helpline. So as many of you will know, the Ageing Well programme sort of presented itself to the Community Development Trust shortly after we were set up back in 2015. And it was quite a considerable lengthy negotiation period with the National Lottery, which basically enabled us to bring what ended up being close to £7 million into the Bay. And the reason we wanted to focus on this today is, one, to share with you some of the joy, some of the outcomes, some of the experiences from that multi-year programme that was implemented with a lot of partners, many of you who are in the room this evening, but also because we used that investment and we really thought about what we could do, not just for isolated older people, which was the focus of that particular grant fund, but also what could we do to create an infrastructure, a set of ways of working in the Bay that would support not just older people, but all people. And so this little section is kind of a nod to the fact that we use that investment to create a better space for everybody who lives in Torbay. So we're going to start where it started, which is 2014. And in 2014, we went out and did a series of consultations with the public. We took out lots and lots of different interactive ways of speaking to people. We became quite famous because we put a sofa in the middle of town centres and got people to sit down and tell us about how they felt about if they were an older person aging in the Bay, and if they were a younger person, how they felt about older people. Consultation hadn't been done in this way in Torbay before that, and it led to a considerable amount of perceptions that we hadn't heard before. A lot of those are about older people feeling that they didn't feel respected, that they didn't have value, didn't have purpose, and didn't seem to have a connection with their community. On the basis of that consultation, we put the lottery application in. We were originally one of 130 areas that were offered or invited to apply for this funding, and we became one of 12 who received it. And at the time of announcement, we were pledged £6 million. You might recognise this gentleman on the screen here. I have to make note of him because actually I'm reporting on a period of the CDT's life where Simon was still director. So, and we'll come on a bit later to tell you what he's doing now. But this is Simon stood outside the post office at the top of Castle Circus in front of the Herald Express banner announcing our outcome. I think, Jim, you were still working for Herald Express at the time. If you weren't, I apologise. And I remember this very well because that bag that's in Simon's hand got a bottle of wine in it because this was my birthday. And all my birthday wishes came true on that particular day. So before I go on, I just want to share a little bit about some of the, through a video, some of the comments that we've had from some of the people that were involved in the Ageing Well programme.
Never classed myself as feeling old, but after a couple of major operations it kind of hits you. Before I got involved with the Ageing Well, pretty lonely.
What we're trying to do is to try to get the facilities that most of the retired people need.
One person in particular who can't get out of the house at all, and I'm the only man he talks to.
I became a voluntary dementia advisor, trying to help other carers looking after their loved ones at home.
I go and see him once a week for about 3 hours, and we talk about all the things men talk about that women don't.
By helping others, that is helping me cope with my situation.
I do it for myself as much as I do it for anybody else.
I teach one lady how to knit, And now she's become a friend, and we go up cycling on a Monday, we go to Crafty Club on a Friday. Another lady rings me up, and if we fancy going out for coffee, she'll come and pick me up. The time banking is exchanging your talent. The satisfaction you're getting out of it is you're doing something for somebody else, and they're coming to do something for you. And then when you're stuck because you've had an operation and you're looking at four walls, you're not on your own.
With dementia, it's very difficult. Eventually, your friends can't come round because your loved one doesn't know who they are, and you get very isolated. We arranged a nice social club. We've set up a monthly roast lunch. We're arranging theatre trips. If you've got something to look forward to, there's not such empty days ahead of you anymore.
I've been told that some of my cooking is quite acceptable. My painting is not brilliant, but it's coming on. After a period of, well, desolation when I've lost my wife, you know. A couple of years later, I thought, well, I can't bring her back, and I wouldn't wish her to be back suffering as she was. And I can either sit around and be miserable, but I've got her memories. I must carry on doing whatever I want to do. I think you ought to come and have a look at us tomorrow.
Be part of this fine organization that's just coming about. Okay. Right, you got that?
Dan, I think we have the last word on that one. So moving forward, one of our aims within the programme was to bring joy to the community and also enable people to find out exactly what was available for them. We'd had a lot of people saying there's nothing going on, and actually there was a tremendous amount of activity in the Bay for people that were over 50, and a tremendous amount of activity that became created as part of the programme. So we had our first festival in October 2015, and at that festival we showcased the following video around some of the ideas that have been brought together about aging well in Torbay.
How do we stop people getting old? How do we deal with the problem of an ageing society? We don't. We can't change the inevitable fact that we're all, each and every one of us, getting older with every tick-tock of the clock. Problem? Well, that comes down to the words and opinions. Problem? Together as a society, we need to stop seeing the problem. We need to see the advantage. They say youth is wasted on the young, but wisdom, skills and experience are wasted on the isolated, the underrepresented, the silent force within our towns. And that is what Ageing Well Torbay are going to change.
And then we moved on. So we got our first set of partners, our delivery partners. They launched their projects. We had the establishment of the community builder team in the Bay. We worked with Carers Aid in their fantastic project Circles of Support, and then CAP's Growing Older Together project. And this was just our starting point to get some of the organisations that really need extra resources to benefit from the investment from the lottery. We carried on and we got joined by Age UK and Brixton Dove Care and their wellbeing coordinators, and also a team of My Support Brokers. And in the next video, we're going to hear a bit about wellbeing coordinators.
I'm Tim Norris, one of your clients, and you're Sean Galloway.
Yep, and I work as a wellbeing coordinator for Age UK Torbay.
And I've known you about 2 years.
So Tim, I work with people over the age of 50 who might be a bit isolated or lonely,
Yes.
and then we look at ways we can support you. Now that could possibly be reconnecting with the community. It could be other levels of support. But really what I say, it's about supporting people to live the lives they want to the best of their abilities.
You'll be pleased to know we've sped on now. We're now in 2016. We have our next Aging Well Festival. And then we started reaching out to more organisations and more older people and started a process of co-design and getting older people to help us design the rest of the Aging Well programme. So that started with a process called Food for Thought. You can move the slide, Matt. This is what happens when you go multimedia. So these are images of us going out back into the community and getting older people to shape much of the programme that was coming next. And we had in 2017, we produced a report of all of that activity and all of that research. And that formulated how we invested the Aging Well funding for the following years. But you can't always predict what's going to come forward. And by 2017, there was quite a major issue that was presented to us by the people that we've worked with, and that was an issue about transport and the demise of the local link bus service and the loss of 17 bus routes. So always wanting to be responding to what the community needs, we took our tentative first step into providing community bus services, and we launched the Our Bus scheme, and we're about to see a small video about that.
You're at risk of losing your local bus service. What do? Accept it and complain at its loss, or do something about it? Well, a community in South Devon has done the latter, pulling together to keep the number 61.
Yes, the route, which has been a struggle to keep going, provides scheduled services between Livermead, St Luke's and Torquay Town Centre, and will continue to do so thanks to a group of residents agreeing to pay a weekly subscription. Our South Devon reporter John Ayres has been to see how it works.
Local buses provide a vital link for people who might otherwise find it difficult to get about. This route is very hilly, and without a bus, some of the pensioners feel isolated. For the last few years, funding this service has been a problem, so the residents have agreed to pay a weekly subscription to keep it going.
We lost the bus, and then we really realised that the bus is the vital thing to get us up to the top of the hill. I can walk down easily, but at 82 walking up is a little more tricky.
You're at risk of losing.
How did we get involved in buses? The backstory is that after Local Link made its announcement, one of our community builders happened to mention to a local councillor that it might be interesting for him to come up to one of her coffee mornings to find out how people felt about the loss of their bus. Now, media is a very good thing, isn't it? And out on social media, the word got out. So over 150 people turned up to the coffee morning. It was at Ockham Farm. It moved from the coffee place over into the kitchen and then out into a field. But it was the way that we could actually show and highlight how important those bus services are, and we're still running those services now. So we move on to 2017 and we have a symposium of ideas at Torquay Central Church, again gathering people's priorities, and we move into the third Aging Well Festival. And that one takes place at Lupton House. It was a fantastic day. We had a lot of issues related to moving people back and forth from the car park, but other than that, it was absolutely glorious. And we've got a little bit of a video on that festival to share with you.
Hello everyone, glad to be here today. I'm from Torbay Mods and this is our little outfit here, and we're pleased to be along today to celebrate and give to this good charity cause today.
So hopefully when people come here they have fun, enjoy themselves, remember the 60s. And find out more information and meet people and talk to people and feel more connected, and at the end of the day make them a bit more happier. And also I think, like myself actually, being retired, being encouraged to use the skills that that you have. You know, it seems a shame that so many people have so much talent and ability and they retire and it sort of disappears.
Back to centre. Your feet on the opposite side, so linking out the opposite. Just like you to maybe take a mental note right now. How are you feeling in terms of sense of fun and happiness? 2 and 3, and then we're going to clap, down, up, clap, down, up, and hula.
I'm quite enjoying it. I think it's quite good fun hearing all the sort of 60s type music. You know, in most of the rooms, it's lovely.
Oh, really enjoyable, yes, and important.
Young and well, and excited.
Quite happy about it, but I think I'm too young for it.
Happy.
Behind the festival and the things that were going on, we were probably by now working with about 4,000 isolated older people across the Bay. And at the Age and Well Festival, we did an innovation fund and we launched another series of projects. And you can see here the recipients of that fund. And they went off and expanded the work that we were doing in various places where the need was needed to be met. We then moved into something that was a little more ambitious, and we started thinking about how older people could influence what was going on in the Bay and outside of the Bay. So we started consultations on formulating a Torbay Assembly and working on making the Bay age-friendly, which is both a national and international status. We then moved into information and advice, and we brought together a series of information and advice organisations under the FAIR project, Financial Advice, Information and Resilience. And this was the first time that the information and advice organisations had come together in this way, probably in about a decade. And we still see, as you'll see later on when we talk about the helpline, that partnership still exists. It still exists and is incredibly active. But we'll see just a little bit now about the activities of FAIR.
The FAIR project is a benefits and debt advice service for people over 50 in Torbay. We're based in the community. We also have our specialist partners who support us and work closely with MenCap as well.
My husband did everything, and he died in September. So I was in a terrible state, and these forms kept arriving, and I didn't know what to do. Eventually, I realised that I had to try and live on £21 a week. Mm-hmm. And I knew that with the best will in the world, I couldn't do that. No. And I just didn't know what to do. I had no idea. I had these pile of papers and I didn't know what to do with them. So I took them all in to Teresa, who managed to keep me stable, mm-hmm. and she got through the whole lot. And now I'm living comfortably thanks to her, and I just think they're marvellous, absolutely.
So here at Yes Brixton, we are based on Bolton Street, and we are open Monday to Friday for a range of different things. We have citizens advice here, we do lots of form filling and telephone help. We have yoga, we have a young volunteers group, we have gardening. Anything you want to do, you can probably do it here. So for FAIR, we tend to here do a lot of PIP forms, universal credit, council tax help, and general council kind of work, phone calls that people are struggling with. There's a person who comes in quite regular, and when his PIP needs updating and he's had the forms, he really struggles to fill them in by himself. He just needs someone to explain them and just make it a lot more simpler, because they don't make things easy, and we realise that and respect that. So we come down maybe 1 or 2 sessions, split it up so it's nice and easy, read through it and just go through it calmly and make it not such a big worked up deal that it sometimes can be.
Well, Crafty Fox is a community-based hub, so we help people. We've always helped people break that isolation type of barrier. So we're here for the general community in regard to offering a friendly face and a cup of tea. Basically, that's us. There's also, obviously, with the fair project that we've now come on board with, we now also do things like a little bit of benefit advice, and we can signpost people into places that if they've got debts, for instance. So we can do all that sort of stuff. It's no big change from what we normally do on a daily basis. We just chat with people. What we have done is that we've helped people make that first call for PIP forms, for instance, because as you mostly probably know, that the date of when you first claim with a phone call is the date where the claim starts from. So we help people do that. We've also been in touch with Homemaker Southwest in regard to doing the forms for people, so that they've taken on, we've referred them forward. So we can do things like that. We also get questions on things like rent and council tax allowances and bits and pieces to do with benefits. So universal credit is obviously another big one that we get asked about. So yeah, we try to help as best we can. If people want to come in and ask about any issue that they're facing, then we can provide either the advice here or a signpost to whoever can provide a sensible answer.
So, on to our 4th Aging Well Festival. We do like a bit of celebration. This one was at Paignton Community and Support Academy. And shortly after, we get to 2019, you'll be pleased to know, and that's when age-friendly status for Torbay was announced. And actually, we started expanding our thinking about what it meant to be age-friendly, and whether actually age-friendly needed to be something that wasn't just for people that were over 50, but for all ages. And that's the manner in which we've approached age-friendly moving forward. So through all of the work that had been done, we managed to create the Torbay Assembly, and then launched to ensure that over 50s have their voices heard. But in line with that age-friendly status, they now work with all ages as well, trying to get the voice of the community heard by those locally and nationally. So that moves us on to another Aging Well Festival. And this one was at the Riviera Centre, which is our current home for the Aging Well Festival. And this is probably the last major activity that we did prior to the onset of the pandemic.
The time has now come for us all to do more. From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home, because the critical thing we must do to stop the disease spreading between households.
So not only did the pandemic cause, obviously, some severe health issues locally, it also threw us entirely because it stopped us being social. So all the work that we had done in the previous 5 years to reduce isolation was in jeopardy, and we had to think seriously around how we could help the community moving forward. The partnerships that we put in place and the support that we had put in place in neighbourhoods themselves, so community builders have been linking individuals in the same street, in the same neighbourhood, provided some resilience for local people. But we also knew there were people in the community that we hadn't reached out to yet. And so with our partners, we managed to set up the Torbay Community Coronavirus Helpline. And that was launched on the 16th of March, 1 week before the first lockdown. We probably hadn't realised what we'd created, but when we look back now, we're very glad we did it.
When the pandemic crisis began, we knew that a lot of people in Torbay would need help. We also knew there were a lot of people that wanted to give help. So we thought about having a phone line that people could ring up, offering and giving and receiving and asking. We had an existing project called Staying Put, which had been funded through the Aging Well programme. That line was already up and running, so we made it the Torbay Community Helpline. Hundreds of people called that line in the first couple of weeks of the first lockdown. We managed to get it up and running in time so that people had somewhere to call. And it was a partnership activity built on the Aging Well partnership that we had been running and working together on for the last 6 years. So, overnight, many of our staff in the Torbay Community Development Trust and other partnership organisations changed their jobs. They became call handlers, they became rapid responders, they went out onto the streets and found things for people. They called people up just to make sure that they were okay. And something wonderful and magical was born.
And a tremendous number of residents came forward to help. Over 1,700 people signed up to volunteer in the community. And interestingly, we found when we did an analysis after the first year of the helpline, we thought probably it was the people that we'd reached out to the Aging Well programme that might be ringing the line because they knew us. And in fact, when we looked at the people that were over 50 that rang for the first 3 lockdowns, only 7% of those actually were on our records of having anything to do with the Aging Well programme. And I remember our Aging Well programme manager at the time saying, well, that's a bit disappointing. And we actually sat down and thought about it and realised actually they weren't ringing the helpline because they had connections in their community and they didn't need the helpline. They had the social connections of neighbours and friends that were helping them. It was the other 93% that actually hadn't experienced the Aging Well programme that were ringing the helpline and that we were providing support to. So in the midst of this great challenging year that we had, 2020, we decided we still needed to connect people and we still needed to celebrate our Aging Well. So we did our first Aging Well at Home virtual festival in 2020. Shortly after that, when we moved into 2021, as most people know, we were fortunate in that vaccination had been developed. And so we diverted our wonderful team of volunteers into being marshals at the vaccination centre. And over 300 volunteers have helped out there now for almost 2 years. It will be 2 years in January. And you can see a selection of them here. They're a mighty team. They're well looked after by the vaccination coordinator, Matt Dart, who's here this evening. And I think not only have they done us justice in terms of what they've done in delivering a good experience at the vaccination centres, they have made our NHS colleagues realise how important it is to work in partnership with the community. The primary care networks that provide all those vaccinations have been very open in saying that without those volunteers, the vaccination centres would not have been able to open. So I think it's another example of how we have what we need when we share what we have. In 2021, following the pandemic, we were informed by the lottery that they were going to be extending the Aging Well programme for another year. They didn't want it to leave, they didn't want it to go at a time of a pandemic when people were so disconnected. So they gave us an additional year of funding, taking the Aging Well programme to the end of March 2022. That enabled us to do yet another virtual festival. So we had Festival at Home 2021. And finally, by the time we got to the end of that financial year, the one that we're reporting on today, the Aging Well programme finally came to an end. We were actually the last programme to finish. Many of the other 13 across the country had kind of begun to round up. But we went out on a high, and we went out on a high because over the previous years, we've managed to find ways of working in partnership and proving the worth of the programme. So when we came to March 2022, we had secured funding for many of the activities that the Aging Well programme has delivered for them to continue. So whether that's the community builders, the wellbeing coordinators, the information and advice network that we showed just a minute ago, almost everything that we did within the Aging Well programme has been taken forward. And we celebrated that with the final Aging Well Festival, which took place earlier this year, back at the Riviera Centre, and a good time was had by all. I think it was probably our most special festival, because it was the first time I think that people had courage to come back out to an event of that size. We overheard many conversations between people who hadn't seen each other for months or even years, and it really felt like we had turned a corner and moving forward. So the delivery partners that are still moving ahead post the Aging Well funding are the community builders and the wellbeing coordinators typically, and we are also still able to fund other activities as well. We have a small grant fund to do that. So at the conclusion of that long and exciting multi-year programme, where we touched almost every neighbourhood, almost every street, and almost every voluntary sector group, we asked people what Aging Well meant to them, and this is what they
Oh, you want me to say it now?
Aging well is swell, boys. Aging well is swell.
A wonderful way to make new friends.
I love making new friends.
Meeting up with my friends.
Friendship.
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 Friendship. Friendship, health, well-being. A great friendship group.
I love the company.
Always made welcome.
Special. Social. Space.
Community, friendship, purpose.
The company, the laughter, and the conversation.
Ambling, healthy,
Social.
chattering, friendly,
Inclusivity.
fun.
Fun.
Feel good factor.
Discovering new pathways and friends. I love the Friday walks. Wonderful walks.
Discovering great walks with lovely people.
Interesting walks and people. Walking with like-minded people.
Going on trips with friends.
I enjoyed the Buckfast trip.
Music at the museum.
Singing. Yoga. Fun and games.
Challenging board games.
It's not just the pool, it's the friendship as well.
Try Camp's Common on Friday.
Coffee at 10:30. Love the coffee, company and biscuits. Tell me when I've got to say.
Now.
I love Domino's. I'm going to burst out laughing in a minute.
Caring for wildlife.
Improving what's here.
Conservation.
Tidy up Torquay.
Regeneration with cooperation.
Joyful.
Freedom.
It's great exchanging ideas.
Happy shared enjoyment.
If you're lonely, come and join us.
This has helped me through my grieving.
I'm a very lucky bunny.
And so am I.
Gratefulness.
It's absolutely changed my life.
It's well worth going to.
A great pleasure.
Giving back to the world.
Community builders are very inspiring.
It's good to give back.
Great satisfaction to help in the community.
Passionate community contribution to society.
Making people happy.
Rewarding.
I love people.
Come and have fun with us.
Live your life. Aging well. I'll tell you when you're on the spotlight. Yeah. But if you don't see anything, it doesn't make any difference. My giving.
I just want to pause there just for a moment before I link through to the helpline and the work that we're doing now, because I think we need to give ourselves a round of applause for that. So what that activity enabled us to do was really start working much more collectively as a voluntary sector. And what happened to the helpline after the initial lockdown happened, it morphed into something entirely different. So it moved away from delivering people shopping, collecting people's prescriptions, providing support through befriending over the telephone. And essentially, people began to trust the helpline, and they would ring it for any manner of challenge or question or piece of advice that they wanted to receive. So over the last year, we found our helpline has morphed into something really quite different. These are slightly older figures, actually. We've got up until today, we've had 58,000 telephone calls to the helpline. 45,000 by the time of the year that we're reporting on now. We've had 1,700 volunteers, as I've explained already, and we've helped 6,300 vulnerable people. Those people are often repeat callers, so we do something for them and then we find that actually they run back. And so all in all, we've had 8,442 calls that we have dealt with. And we've split the helpline down into 3 different areas. This is an attempt to put on one screen what is essentially involving a good 1,000 people and a good 100 organisations. But we have a central helpline team. Our call handlers are mainly volunteers, but they're managed and overseen and supported by 7 members of staff. And collectively, they manage the shifts, so they manage the time that the helpline is open and taking calls. They organise rapid responders for people that need things done very, very quickly. They deal with food bank referrals, which is one of the major requests that we get at the moment, and sadly from a lot of families and individuals that have never had to ask for support for food previously. We also have developed a home and hospital service as well. So trying to help with the pressures within the NHS, we know that people are being discharged from hospital sooner than they had been previously, and we're providing them support at home when they get home. Whether they're getting that shopping or just making sure the heating's on or making sure somebody's there to have a conversation. So that's our central team and that's what they do. Our community building team run the community-led support. So they do matching between people that need things in their neighbourhoods and a volunteer that's prepared to offer it. They're linking now people back into community activity. I'm pleased to say that the 300 or so activities that the community builders have set up in the Aging Well programme, we already have 160 of those that have come back, and we've got 50 new ones that have appeared over the last 6 months. So we really are seeing our community activity come back again. We also provide a defending service as well through the community builders, and that can either be by telephone or more increasingly face-to-face. And we have a fantastic transport coordinator that enables people to get out and about to those activities, particularly if they've got mobility issues. And then we have our voluntary sector-led part of the helpline, and this is where we work with 100 other organisations in the Bay. And we have broken this down to different areas of need, different things that people are asking us for. So we have a team that refer into health and social care, and that's been a particular area of development because very early into this new phase of the helpline, our colleagues at Torbay Council who deal with the adult social care assessments realised that actually what they needed was to be working in partnership with us and actually finding ways that the community can contact us first, so the voluntary sector can provide what it can to individuals, and that then they only get referred into the statutory sector for the things that the statutory sector can only provide. This has enabled us to deal with the concerns of over 1,095 people who wouldn't have got support from adult social care because they didn't meet the threshold. But because they came to us first, we were able to provide them with everything they needed. And that has now morphed into us becoming the front door for all new social care referrals into Torbay Council. And currently, of those referrals, 74% of them, we find we can meet that individual's needs in the community. It's a really good example of if we work closer together, we can give people the support that they really need. We have a very large team that are dealing with mental health support, and that's coordinated by Age UK, and that involves specialist defenders and also a series of organisations that we refer into, including Devon Clinic. We have a team of people that provide information advice and financial advice and housing support. And all of that, this activity is coordinated by Angie Manning, who's sitting up here. And Angie has become an expert on what all the advice and information organisations can provide across the Bay, and she matches people to the right places at the right time. It's becoming more of a challenge. I think demand on that part of the helpline has probably trebled in the last 6 months, and it's likely to go up again. And so the work that Angie does in terms of making sure people get to the right place and understanding the capacity in all of those organisations so people aren't put on a waiting list is becoming increasingly valuable. We also provide bereavement support to people that ring up. We link through to the Imagine This partnership for anybody who asks for support for children, young people or family support. We link through to Health Watch Torbay for anybody who wants digital support and Net Friends, which is a local CIC. We can also link people through to prayer and reflection. We're working very closely with the churches in the Bay. We link through to the Standing Tall Partnership for people who've experienced domestic abuse. And very last but not least, we also have a handy person, a team of handy people, in fact, that's coordinated by somebody that's called Andy, you know, Andy the handyman, and he's based in Brixton, yes, but works across the whole of the Bay. So this is what the helpline has turned into. It turned into a front door, not only for adult social care in the Bay, but also a front door into our voluntary sector. People still approach lots of organisations separately. They don't all come through this route. But for somebody who doesn't know where to go, they can make this one call and we can activate all of that for them. Sometimes people come to us, and increasingly they're coming to us with more and more complex needs, and they often need more than one part of the helpline to provide them with support. When people can organise that for themselves, we support them to do so. If that is a little bit of a challenge, and actually that's kind of a little bit complicated for somebody who doesn't quite know why CAB are calling, and also a community builder, and also adult social care, who are all these people and what they're doing, we allow those people and we allocate them a wellbeing coordinator. Those are provided at the moment by AGM, Brixton, yes, and Eat That Frog. And those wellbeing coordinators walk alongside that individual who can make sense of this wonderful network of support that we're providing. So the reason we wanted to share this with you tonight is because if we hadn't had the Aging Well programme, we wouldn't have the community builders, we wouldn't have the helpline, and we wouldn't have the joined up networking that we've got on the helpline. We're just going to do a couple more things on the helpline, and then I just want to close by showing you how we think the voluntary sector is organised in the Bay now. So this is something about volume. So we just flagged to you, so from March, when we started with the helpline in 2020 to December of that year, we took 14,000 calls, 14,672. Last year, from January 21 to December 21, that went up to 16,000. And bearing in mind that we didn't have any lockdowns in that period, actually that is showing the increase of people coming to us, the challenges that were in their life before we even had a pandemic. This year, we've already had 27,000 calls, and that's up until September. So you can see how the helpline is responding in ways that it never thought it would have to, and you can also see the very deep-seated needs that we've currently got in our community. So we have double the calls in comparison to 2020. We currently have fewer volunteers, so we need people that were volunteering for us before may have been furloughed, they've had back to work. So we will be working a lot over the next 6 months to increase the number of volunteers that we have, and we're doing that in partnership with the Health and Wellbeing Voluntary Sector Network, which I'll talk about more in a minute. Everyone who's coming through to the helpline now has a greater complexity. Our call handlers would love to hear somebody ring up and say, please can somebody go and get my shopping? It's not like that anymore. And we just wanted to share with you a couple of stories of people who've been supported by the helpline.
Over the life of the Torbay Community Helpline, we've taken thousands of calls from local people needing support at difficult times in their life. We've supported hundreds of those to be able to go onward to work with other agencies to get more appropriate support for their circumstances. A couple of those really stick out in our minds because they've enabled us to work really closely with other volunteer organisations across the Bay, as well as involve our volunteers that give their time to help others. One of those is Robert. Robert was referred to us by Drug and Alcohol Services following an intensive stay in hospital. He'd been very unwell, had been in hospital for some months and had no family locally. He was discharged from hospital homeless, had no income, was feeling very vulnerable and had no possessions, and these had been destroyed whilst he was an inpatient. We spoke with Robert many times over the days that he was discharged, talked to him about how vulnerable he felt, how we could support him and how other agencies were there to support him also. 14 months after he was discharged from hospital, we still continue to support Robert. Other agencies have supported him also, but he's now moved on from their support, but continues to be engaged in support with the helpline. We provided Robert with ongoing food support, access to clothing, access to furniture. We worked with local agencies such as Age UK and the Torbay Food Alliance to make sure that he had bedding, that he had clothing, and that he was able to eat. We've helped support get his income in place, get out and about in his community, and following this level of support, Robert is now going to be commencing his training as a volunteer call handler with the helpline. Robert said to us recently, "You people have really saved my life. You've fed me, clothed me, emotionally supported me, and helped me to fight many battles. I think I would be dead without you." James also called the helpline following the death of his partner, and he was desperate and not sure where to turn. He was feeling very alone, didn't know many people in his community, and was struggling day to day. The helpline still supports James 16 months after his initial call to us. We've worked with him on a weekly basis, introducing him to other voluntary services where he can build some confidence to get out and about in his community. We've got to know him really well over this time, and he's been really engaged with the support that we've provided. Following support for finance and housing and some support to tackle the isolation that he was feeling, we'd introduced him to members of the Torbay Food Alliance to be able to provide him with some food support whilst he was coming to terms with having only a sole income. James has now recently started to volunteer with the food bank, and this gives him a real sense of purpose. He said to us recently, "I can't thank you guys enough. You really were there for me when no one else was, and I was at my lowest point." Those are just two stories from the thousands of people that we've spoken to on the helpline.
Karen, who's our community helpline manager and holds the whole thing together. And I think the examples she chose to share with you are really good ones around how we try to encourage people, even if they call the helpline for support, to think about how they might have something to offer. And that's how we really unlock the potential of the assets in our community. So I just wanted to finish with this diagram here. One of the things that the Aging Well programme taught us was that if we worked together as partners, we could do a lot better. We're greater than the sum of our parts. And when the Community Development Trust was founded, we had that as a belief. We didn't quite know how to convince people of it. So it was very fortunate that the first partnership we put together, the Aging Well partnership, ended up with £7 million. Because when that happened, people said, "Oh, they might be onto something here." So through that period of the Aging Well programme, we've worked with a number of different areas of the voluntary sector. And this is now how we see ourselves structured. And the CDT is here to help all of those circles. You said when we set up that there were over 700 voluntary sector groups in the Bay, and there still are. Some of them have changed, some of them have gone, some have been replaced. But this is generally how they now pan out across our Bay. And we just wanted to share that with you because I think sometimes people forget what an extensive voluntary sector we have in the Bay. They forget that actually we are really grounded and really quite organised. And actually now we're finding that we're seen as quite an exemplar, not only in Devon, but across the rest of the country. Thank you.
That was incredible. I've only been a trustee for a few years, so actually to see everything, it's just really quite heartwarming. I just wanted to invite any questions from anybody. That better? Should I say all that again? I was just saying how incredible it is. I've only been a trustee for a few years, so to see everything in one place like that was absolutely amazing. And I just wanted to invite questions from anybody. Yes. Thank you. Anybody else? I think Tracy might have an answer for you. That's fine.
Thought you were going to give us a donation, Pat. That's what we were hoping for. So it's a really good question. Can you hear me all right? We have been very fortunate that Torbay Council have entered into a number of agreements with us over the last year. So they are funding the community builders for the next 3 years, and they're also funding 50% of the helpline costs. So that comes to £500,000 a year. So that is a really good injection of funding. What we're also having to do, the lottery equally having invested into Torbay for such a period of time, are also looking to provide some match funding for the community builders, and we should have that agreed by January. However, that still leaves quite a few of our activities that are unfunded. So at the moment, we're putting in a number of applications to other trusts and foundations that we perhaps haven't had to approach before, and who haven't kind of been given funding to Torbay, and we think they probably could. And we reckon probably for the next couple of years, we would be able to sustain our activities by doing that. In the longer term, we're a community development trust. And so what we need to do is we need to find ways of generating income, because the whole principle of the community development trust is that it holds assets and activities that generate an income. We might have some fundraising potential, but we need to move into a place where we're slightly more sustainable, and then we're more in control of our funding, and then we're less reliant on funders. However, if there are any funders in the room, we still need your money for the next 2 years because we haven't quite nailed that. And I think that, you know, some of the bigger funders at the moment are doing some quite ambitious things. So we know we've got 6 of the major funders that are putting local motion investment in the Bay. And that's about saying, actually, we shouldn't be going into communities and just doing projects and having them stop and start, and then we go away, and then we come back and ask them to do something else. The National Lottery right at this minute, but there was a meeting earlier today, are also looking at how they can make their funding more sustainable for areas as well. What they've realised is funders can't come into areas and make them better. Only the community that live here can make it better. And they need to start working a way of funding our activities and the things that we do in the way that works for us. And so we're part of that process at the moment of trying to get some more sustainable funding coming in long term. But we're all right at the moment, Pat, but I'll let you know when we're not.
Thank you. Unless there's any more questions, I'm going to invite, oh, yeah, Helen. Okay, it is. She said she wanted me to talk, but she keeps jumping in front of me.
So I think you're Stuart, I think you live in Shipley, and I think your community builder was Nicola, and she emigrated to Spain, and I'm really sorry about that. I really tried to keep her, but her husband wasn't having it. So we've done a restructuring in our community building team over the last couple of weeks. Actually, it's taken us quite a longer than that, but it's actually come to a fruition in the last 2 weeks. So we will be advertising for Nicola's replacement next week. We've also done a little bit of shifting around with our team as well, and we'll be recruiting for a new community builder to cover Paignton Town Centre, Clifton and Maiden Way, because our lovely builder there, Ash, has moved into supporting the asylum seekers in the Bay. So you'll be having something coming out very soon, and we anticipate, Stuart, we'll have a new person in place in January. Yeah, but don't worry, we've got Helen and Theo coming to look after you as well. Don't worry. Thank you.
Thank you. This goes to show how much you value that support as well. I'm going to hand over, I'm going to invite Queenie to come up on stage. She's going to take you through the more formal part of the evening. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay, so item 1 on the annual general meeting is the approval of the minutes from March 2022 AGM. These minutes have been circulated to the members and we've received no comments. So I think I can propose, can't I? So I just need a seconder. Yeah. Everyone's really keen. I'll give you a chance to second something else in a minute. So now I'm going to hand over to Jo, hopefully, for the chairperson's report.
Thank you, Queenie. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay again. Change of venue. So my report to you all, our work over 2021-22 continues to be led by our overall purpose of enabling Torbay to be a place where all feel included and can be involved in growing and connection, vibrant, thriving, creative and prosperous communities. And our strategic aims of encouraging people to do what they do best to connect and contribute to what they care about. Supporting groups to thrive through networks, communication and consultation, and making connections, stimulating cooperation and new ways of working, creating space for collaboration. 21-22 year continues to be a challenging time for the community of Torbay as we adjusted to a second year of the global pandemic. By the close of the year, the community were beginning to open up again and something resembling normality was returning. As an organisation, we worked hard on two fronts, supporting those still impacted by the pandemic and supporting individuals and groups as they engaged and reformed after 18 months of isolation. Central to the Torbay Community Development Trust work is collaboration and partnership working. This year was no exception with strong partnerships working with the groups in our sector and statutory organisations. The Community Helpline is a prime example, as we've just heard earlier. As we move into the post-pandemic period, we look to further strengthen our partnership working to increase the impact of our sector. We will be restructuring our organisation to make it ready for the new challenges ahead. This includes the development of a new trading wing set up to share our learning and organisations outside of Torbay, to be run by our outgoing director, Simon Szyberski. And I must take a special thank you to Simon for leading us so confidently over the past 8 years. We're proud of what we've managed to achieve in the fast-paced, ever-changing last 12 months. None of this would have been possible without the amazing work of our team of staff and volunteers, all of who went above and beyond, yet again, to support people in need and the community around them. A huge thank you to them all. For me, there's a few spotlights of snapshots of impact that I really wanted to highlight through this work. That we're supported by our community builders, 3,117 isolated people, 21,366 exchanges to date on the Torbay Time Bank. Our bus service covered 19,364 miles, getting people to the places they needed to be. We had 13,631 participants involved in the Ageing Well programme. 16,344 calls in and out of the Torbay Community Helpline. 642 vulnerable people participated and or delivered positive people self-development learning. We had 485 new requests for support from the Special Educational Needs and or Disability Information and Advice Support Service. 53 organisations supporting children and young people and families in the Imagine This partnership. And finally, 1.29 million raised for local voluntary sector organisations. So I think you can agree in what has been an incredibly and continues to be an incredibly challenging time. The level of commitment, the level of collaboration, the level of determination from the organisation and the community that we work with has enabled us to continue to support those that need it the most. And we look forward to working with those of you in the future, in the next coming year, hopefully to a even brighter and positive future in what is currently, we appreciate, a very hard time. Thank you, Queenie.
Thanks, Jo, and you can get back to your day now. Okay.
Thank you, I will. Take care, have a lovely evening all.
So I'm Queenie Martin, I'm the treasurer, so I have to introduce the treasurer's report. Having seen the previous slide, how much you guys enjoyed dancing, I feel I should be doing this through some kind of medium of interpretive dance. But that's not my strong point, so I'm just going to read you some numbers instead. I think everybody's got a copy of this. The numbers I'm talking about are on page 25 and 26. got full sets of accounts here, unless anyone's a real sucker for punishment and wants to look at the full sets, you're very welcome to, but I'll just talk to you about the highlights. So the highlights are total income for the year increased by £647,000. That's up to £2.9 million income in 22. This was mostly due to the introduction of the helpline. The surplus for the year was 492,000, and as of the 31st of March 2022, the total funds to the charity were 1.3 million, of which 58,000 was attributed to unrestricted funds, and the rest is restricted funds. Quick whistle stop through the actual income and expenditure. So total income 2.9 million, total expenditure 2.4 million, with net income 492,000. We had reserves brought forward of 822,000, giving us funds carried forward of 1.3 million. The trustees have reviewed the reserves of the charity and consider the current level of reserves necessary to fund the continuation of the charity, taking into account the following requirements. So the charity needs to maintain general reserves, that's unrestricted reserves, to enable the services to continue uninterrupted for approximately 3 months, together with a provision for redundancy costs, and this is being calculated at £52,000 as at the 31st of March. So we've got our levels of reserves that we're happy with. Fixed assets, so quick whiz through the balance sheet. Honestly, I'm going to do about 30 seconds on the balance sheet. So we've got fixed assets of £32,000. This is the fixtures and fittings at 4 to 8 Temperance Street and those really valuable community buses. We've got debtors of £304,000 and cash at bank of 1.3 million, giving us total assets of 1.6 million, creditors of 136,000 with net assets of 1.4 million. I'm going to test you all now. Did anyone hear any numbers I said? If you want to talk more about this, we can chat endlessly in the bar about the account, or we can talk about wine and the weather. So we need to approve it, please. Yeah. So I'll propose them. I need a seconder, please. Yeah, Joe's a very keen seconder over there. So now I'll leave Tracy to deal with the resignation of election of trustees, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so trustees are absolutely critical to us as an organisation. Can you hear me? Lower, higher? You don't work very well sharing a mic. I just need a box. In fact, I thought those things over there were boxes, but they're not. They're seats, aren't they? They're for children when they come to the pantomime. I was going to try and stand on one of those, but anyway, probably a little bit too risky. So the community development trustees are a hard-working team of people. We have 7 trustees at the moment. We have Joe Collin, who you've just seen in New Zealand. We have Queenie. We have Jim Parker, who's down here at the front. We have John Dunson, who sadly isn't here today because of COVID. We have Roger Hickman. I can't see whether Roger's here, maybe not. Angie, who you saw on stage a minute ago, and Nigel Williams, who is out of town at the minute. Our system is that we have to have 2 of those trustees to resign each year, and they are allowed to be re-elected for up to 3 terms. So this year, standing down but standing also for re-election are Angie Manning and also Roger Hickman. So I kind of want to do a vote on that if people are happy with that. We are very happy for the trustees that are standing down to be re-elected. So we just ask you to raise your hand if you're in favour of that. And then the lovely people get another 3 years. All those in favour? Thank you. That's great. Duly passed. Item 5 is the appointment of the auditors. So our current auditors are Thomas Westcott. They've been our auditors for several years. So we need to have an auditor always in place. So we'll be proposing that we continue to appoint Thomas Westcott, but during the next year, we'll be looking at going out to tender for potentially for new auditors, although Thomas Westcott will probably be invited to be part of that process. So I need a proposer. I can propose again somebody else to second the appointment of Thomas Westcott. That's a very exciting one. You can have that one. And back to Stacey to talk about the future. Okay, that's brilliant. I think we've done the AGM in 12 minutes. So I'm not going to dally very long now, but I just wanted to say a few things, perhaps kind of raised a bit of them already, but it is a challenging environment for us as the voluntary sector moving forward. It's challenging because the partners that we work with, particularly in the statutory sector, we now know we're going to have a lot less money. So we are going to have to continue to be innovative. We're going to have to continue to be creative, but I think we're up for it. And all the partners that we work with, I know, are up for continuing the very valuable work that we do. We've got 160 members of our organisation now. That's both individuals and voluntary sector groups. If you aren't a member and would like to become a member, then please can you look for us in the bar because we can sign you up. Sadly, it doesn't give you many benefits apart from a sense of pride, which I think is probably very, very nice. But it does also mean that you get our information regularly and we can invite you along to things like this. So we also invite the general public to stay. There's just one thing that I wanted to say before we kind of close, and it's a notable thing, and I'm going to embarrass somebody in the room, but before we have our next AGM, our very lovely community fundraising advisor, Robin Causley, is going to retire. And Robin's sitting behind most of the people in the way that he normally does, not sitting in the limelight. And I just want to take this opportunity, Robin, because by the time we gather again, hopefully you'll have to be up in Barbados. Robin raises in excess of sometimes 1.5 million a year for voluntary sector organisations in the Bay. He works alongside them, which is really important. He doesn't do it for them, he does it with them, so he builds their capacity moving forward. When you do go, Robin, in March, we will do that big calculator of how many millions that you've brought in. But I know he's ahead of his target this year already. He's already got £800,000 and we're only in November, so we're doing really well. So I don't want to panic anyone. I told one of our trustees earlier that I was going to make this announcement and she immediately went into panic. Robin is wonderful, but Robin will share his skills with others. So we will still be providing that service. We're not going to stop doing that as the Development Trust. So finally, before I let you go to the bar, I just have one additional thank you, which is for the man that's hiding behind the curtain over here, which is Matt, who I'm going to ask to actually stand out. You have to. You have to. Now, I'd like you to take a big bow, though, because Matt has had to pull this AGM together in the last week on his own, because unfortunately our colleague David Ledger is with us at the moment. So Matt has really pulled out the stops. And I think we had, I don't want to tempt it, but I think we've had the least technical issues we've ever had. Yeah, okay. So a big thank you to Matt. Finally, just one last announcement. This isn't related to our work, but I just wanted to plug that the Civic Mayor, Mandy Darling, is having a Civic Carol service actually here next Friday from 4 to 6. And she has chosen to make the theme of that Civic Carol service celebrating Torbay's volunteers. So if anybody wants to attend, it is ticketed, but it's really reasonable. There's a £2 a ticket for adults and £1 for children. And the proceeds of that go to the Guide Dogs for the Blind and Phoenix Bay School, who work with some of our most challenged young people in the Bay. I mention it tonight because you could buy your tickets whilst you're here. So I'll leave that with you. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for listening. We love you all.